Yusuf Umar is a broadcast journalist for E-News Channel Africa. Born in London, raised in Brisbane, schooled in California, he now lives and works in Johannesburg, in South Africa. Yeah, that's a lot of places. His YouTube channel proclaims that he once hitchhiked solo from Durban to Damascus in 2010. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. He is also a filmmaker, an avid tweeter, and a Snapchatter who was recently named one of the influential
Millennials.
Yes. In the Club Central, #Kalman20. So it's fine if we tweet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You guys aren't paying me, so the tweets will be better.
A forerunner in his industry, Yusuf is not constrained by the norm. He is instead breaking barriers by marrying technology together with journalism. Yusuf lives through his journalism and has immersed himself in the art of snap media. Yeah.
How's it, guys? I didn't write that. I don't know who did, but it was very flattering. And it will be soon outdated. I'm actually my last 2 weeks at ENCA. I'm going on to exciting and cool things. But nonetheless, at the moment, I'm the mobile journalism lead at ETV. And I hope to share with you guys a little bit about how you can tell stories using your mobiles, how you can crowdsource stories, because whether you guys are getting into governance or whatever it may be, business, you will inevitably all become content creators of some sort, or you will require somebody to create content. And I want to tell you a little bit about that. So, we launched our mobile journalism program, Mojo. Mojo is not an Austin Powers reference, it's what we call mobile journalism. And it really was two things, or three things in fact. It's the creation of content using a mobile. So that means physically sending out your guys with a iPhone instead of having to have the big broadcast equipment. It's creating content for mobile devices. And that's really because we realized here in South Africa, for example, there's 133% cell phone penetration. That means that there's more cell phones than there are fridges. There's certainly more cell phones than there are televisions. So if we're going to get into more people's homes and provide them with more stories, it's going to be from the power of what's in their pocket, not DSTV or some other means of platform. And I hope to also share with you guys where we're going. So if we think that yesterday was desktop and laptops and today is mobile, we see tomorrow being 360 virtual reality storytelling. And I'll tell you guys a little bit about that. So that's my Twitter handle and Instagram and Snapchat and everything. Feel free to tweet during the session. Yusuf Omar SA. Despite that long-winded introduction of where I've lived and stuff, I definitely see South Africa as home, so much so that it's part of my online identity. So as I said, whopping great big amounts of South Africans that are on cell phones, and we're not even ahead of the curve in that respect. If you look at Kenya, if you look at Nigeria, they have infinitely more cell phone penetration than we do, and they've far earlier got involved in mobile banking, in when I went to Kenya now, to 2010, you could already pay for your minibus taxi using a cell phone. We're only just starting to get onto the whole Snap Scan and Zapper and all these things that's starting to get into our environments.
The majority of South Africans skipped entire technological generations. They didn't experience dial-up internet or ADSL connections. For many, their first taste of the World Wide Web was on a cell phone.
So, what's interesting about, could you hear that? Is it too soft? What I was basically trying to say there is that unlike the UK and the US, where we went from dial-up internet and then you got broadband and then you got 2G and then you got 3G, for most South Africans, their first time experiencing the internet is on their cell phone and on a 3G or 4G signal. That has enormous benefits in terms of laying down infrastructure. You don't have to go through those steps. We skip generations. We say, we're not going to do dial-up, we're going to go straight to broadband. We're not going to do broadband, we're going to go straight to 4G. And that's exciting. It's huge cost saving for South Africa's telecom companies, and it means we can very, very quickly catch up and even beat the rest of the world when it comes to some of the mobile platforms. But then we take it one step further. So if we look at enca.com, E-News Channel Africa, we get about 1 million people coming onto our website every single month. and we have a team of like 80 people, and it costs in the region of 30 million rand a year to run that platform. We can have Facebook, for example, where 1 in 5 South Africans are there. 10 million South Africans are on Facebook. And on our Facebook channel, which is run by like 2 people and costs us nothing, we also have 1 million people. So we're increasingly seeing that the idea of a home page is dead, it's extinct. When is the last time you went for your news to bbc.com or cnn.com or aljazeera.com? You don't. The news comes to you on Facebook or on Instagram or on Snapchat or on Twitter. And it's far less, it's less hard work, isn't it? You read what people share. You don't go out and look for it. You don't want to download news. You don't want to read news. You want to talk about news. You want to converse about news. And that's why we're seeing what we call news organizations becoming platform agnostic. So instead of saying we're just going to be on Facebook, we're going to be everywhere. We're going to be on all your spaces. But then, of course, we've got to understand that it's not quite the same on each one. You don't watch something on a cell phone screen the same way you do on a television. You want it to be shorter. If it's Facebook, you might want to have subtitles because you're watching it on a minibus taxi and you're not listening with the audio on. So it's completely re-engineering the way we think about how we put stories together. The idea of taking what we have on DSTV and just slapping it online doesn't do well. It doesn't work. At the NCA, 61% of our audience is on mobile phones. So are we really thinking about how to make things look good on smaller screens? And then, of course, in the South African context, you've got to be very aware of data. Data is prohibitively expensive. So we've got to look at other platforms to make it cheaper. GIFs, you know, you have those little... Almost no data. Anybody will click on that before they click on a video. Even a meme. How much information can you get into a meme? When you have Zoomer and you've got a funny little slogan at the top and below him. These are all really cost effective for the user to access that sort of content. If you're going to do a video, it better be really good for somebody to want to watch it through. So I call it LOL. The first thing being length, opinion, and language. And I'm going to talk to you a bit about that, but it all goes behind this idea of made for mobile content. So length. When we looked at, are you guys familiar with AJ Plus? Yes. AJ Plus, we looked at The Guardian, you look at BBC, BuzzFeed, take all of them. And the average length of their videos is 1 minute long, which is really, really tough. It's really tight to put an entire story into a minute. But people don't, especially we live in the generation of, you might have seen eating McDonald's there, fast food generation where we want fast food content too. We want to digest it quickly, sharply. We want to know what to be told about a story. We don't want the long-winded conventional format. I mean, in a television story, normally you have myself talking for a little while, interview, me again talking, interview, and then me on camera saying, Yusuf, Omar, Johannesburg. That framework is dead. It doesn't work on the internet. We're totally re-engineering the way we tell stories. Look at age demographics. 40% of the people that are on ENCA's online platform are between the ages of 15 and 35. Yet we still have Jeremy Maggs and Inan Repeti who don't resonate with that audience at all. Are we speaking their language? No. So we need to come up with new, younger voices who do speak that language, who can be far more personal, people can relate to. We don't want an old white guy telling us about what's happening at the Pretoria protests. You want a modern face of South Africa to speak about what's relevant to young people today. So we're navigating through those hurdles. And then opinion. We're finding increasingly that people don't want a down the middle, like, oh, here's the facts, do what you want with it. They almost want to be told what to think about something. They want to have what we call explainer journalism, where we tell you, here's 5 things you need to know about the Rustenburg water crisis. Here's why the racism at Pretoria's Yusuf universities is pretty messed up. They want to be told why, because it means that they can share that on their Facebook wall, and then it's saying something about them. What you share, especially the news you read, is indicative of the person that you are. So we're essentially tailoring news to profiles, work out who your person is that you're directing it to, and you create content that they want to see. And here's an example of some of that explainer journalism, as we call it.
I think comrades to rally with one of these may not be the best way to get your message out there. The ANC social media strategy is critical. The majority of its voters are young, aged between 18 and 24. Twitter believe its new app is the closest thing to teleportation. Periscope, exploring the world through someone else's eyes. But here's what you need to know. It's all part of the National Development Plan to reduce our Gini coefficient or the Gini ratio. Our
So I'm bringing attention to 2 points there. Firstly, you might have heard at the end, I tried to engage you on a conversation. Tell us what you think using hashtag ANCNGC. And that's not just because we actually care what people think, not that we don't, we do care, and we do want to have a conversation, but it's also profitable. Once you start calculating how YouTube's, Facebook's, their algorithms work, it's essentially them looking at how many people are sharing and how many people are conversing about a video at any particular time. So if you can continue that conversation, get people having a debate below your video, that's how it gets onto more people's timelines. So essentially engagement is everything nowadays. Back in the old days, we used to ask a reporter or a storyteller, what story are you doing today? And they'd give you the 5 W's and H, where, what, where, when, why, and how. Now we want to know how are you going to share it? What conversations are you going to start online? The other reason that's important is because nobody's figured out, except perhaps the New York Times, not many people have figured out how to make mobile profitable. We know how to make money on television with traditional adverts, but that's not working in the online space. Nobody, do you guys ever watch those 3-second ads before a YouTube video? They're just irritating, you can't wait to skip. And I'm sure you don't even know what banners are around your Facebook page. Having said that, those banners are specifically orientated to you. They know exactly what race you are, what age, what religion. I'm married for 3 years, so they're giving me ads for like baby stuff, like I'm suddenly gonna have a child. Having said that, we need to find new ways to monetize online. And that starts with creating a big reservoir of content. Huge. As many stories as you can get out. And how do you get people to continue going to that same video, that ANC video in 2 years' time? If you can do that, then that tail of revenue is longer. Because the worst thing you want is to produce a story for today and then it's irrelevant tomorrow, right? You want it to be relevant, so that means coming up with broader themes. The other thing you notice about those explainer pieces that you watched, as opposed to conventional story news, where we have to send cameras out and we have to go and film a protest, blah, blah, blah. These are very efficient. I didn't leave the office for any of those. It's a green screen, good lighting, and a couple graphics. Going through our archive and pulling footage that we already have. It's a far more efficient way to do things, instead of every day having to go out and interview Oscar Pistorius or go and find Hugh Masekela or whatever it may be. It's just the fastest way. And I mean, if we look at AJ Plus, for example, they've accomplished it. In the last 2 years, they've counted, that was 1 billion views. Now they're approaching 2 billion views. So really, the numbers are online. We've learned that a long time ago. The other motivation for Mojo is, of course, cost. Our conventional broadcast camera that we take out on stories is R500,000 when you get the tripod and the whole sound gear. My kit at the moment is looking at about, the phone, maybe 20,000 rand. And that scares people because they think, well, you're going to take our jobs, we don't need a cameraman anymore, we don't need a video editor, because I can do it all on the phone, right? I can shoot, I can edit, and I can send. Where you conventionally have a Z, where you used to go, the reporter, video editor, quality control, output. I publish straight from my phone to Facebook. It's a singular, quick platform. The way to rethink it, you're not losing jobs, you're creating more storytellers. You equip everybody in our company with a phone, and you suddenly have not 20 journalists, but 500 people that can tell stories in their communities, in their areas, and that's crowdsourcing, and that's powerful to us. Here's just a couple stories recently that we've done using just Mojo, mobile journalism, just a cell phone.
The BDS activist was removed by police from the gym on Wednesday for wearing a...
You guys remember this one? These are rape survivors that were climbing a mountain in Drakensberg. And that was Trevor Noah in New York when he had his opening show. Yeah, it's selfie stick journalism with the ANC. Cool. So you get an idea of sort of width of stories that we can tell. Just to give you how many people here on Android? The vast majority seem to iPhones. And other? What have you got?
Nokia.
Nokia, they still make those.
I support it.
That's cool. That's interesting. And the vast majority, and the group you gave, I mean, the majority of you are on Samsungs or Android. that rings the same for most developing nations, for India and all over the world. Which means we need to increasingly start making stuff that looks good on Android specifically, which we haven't quite cracked yet. Anyway, this is an idea of a basic Mojo kit. You've got a phone, you've got a lapel mic. Audio is going to be, whoever's thinking about doing your own content, is the big difference between amateur and professional. If you can have crisp audio, it's what separates you. A good tripod always helps, a little bit of lighting, always have a battery pack. You know how quickly your battery goes. Microphone, and then some sort of a adaptive device, and there's lots of them that will connect your phone onto a tripod so that you get a little bit of stability. Of course, you can beef that up enormously and get a much better, richer kit. This stuff is all professional gear, it's optional, not compulsory, but just to give you an idea of how you can get additional lenses, you can get all sorts of stuff really. You can connect your phone so you can dump stuff onto a USB stick, these sorts of things. But the fact that your phone now shoots up to 4K, 4 times higher quality than high definition. It really is no longer a matter of, back in the days it used to be like, oh yeah, that's a soft story, we can send a mobile out to cover it. Now we're on par with the big cameras. The only difference is we're faster. And that's a huge advantage in our business. So we've trained 32 mobile journalists now. 32 members of our staff, our reporters, and an additional 12 young boot campers, we call them, who are young millennials. None of them are older than 25, and they understand the market that they're talking to. But the one thing we haven't talked about is crowdsourcing, citizen journalism. Essentially, if we had to think of storytelling as a big triangle, right? We've got a whiteboard. We do have a whiteboard. I'm just going to draw it here and I'll move it. So if we think of storytelling as a big triangle, right? At the bottom, we should be looking at the most efficient way to tell stories. Should be looking at the wires. Do you know guys what wires are? So you get Associated Press, you get Reuters, you get all these big companies that send us a whole bunch of footage, and you can get that kind of stuff online too. After the wires, we should be looking at the crowd. The crowd is going onto Twitter, working out what's going to go viral on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook before it does, and us getting the permission to use that stuff and getting it online. After that, we look at explainers, and that's the stuff I showed you, the really cool, funky graphic stuff, which takes a lot of work to put together. And then right at the top, jockeys. That's the cool stuff, right? You can't see from there. So right up the top, you get jockeys. If I can understand, there we go. Right at the top, you get jockeys. Of course, most people get into the business and they see it the other way around. They want to get straight into the jockeys and stuff. But if we took a model like this, then it becomes far more efficient. Because all of this stuff, the crowd, the wire stuff, it's already filmed. It's stuff from the Paris shootings, and you just got to bring it back and repackage it and make it relevant to a South African audience. The crowd stuff is just about finding stuff that's already online that you guys have shot in the TUT protest and saying, hey, do you mind if I have permission to use that? Cool, let's do it. Explainers is using both of those and repackaging them with graphics. And right at the top, jockeys. Any questions at this stage? Jockey documentaries. Yes. Yeah?
So just going back to what you were saying about the length of videos at this point in time,
right.
People not having the time for a longer video.
Right.
What implications do you think that has for like civic education and awareness? Because in a minute you can't present, like you said, you're explaining, you're presenting.
Yeah.
These are things you need to know, and there may be things that are left out. So do you think there needs to be like a pushback of longer pieces? So like a John Oliver, he says, no, I have to take 20 minutes to explain the story because it has complexity.
Agreed. Did you guys watch John Oliver's piece this week on Trump? It's very good. I think that you're absolutely right, and I think you need different lengths for different platforms. I think anything from 10 minutes, about 10-minute length is perfect for YouTube and Vimeo. For Twitter, nobody watches anything longer than 30 seconds. For Instagram, of course, it's a 20-second story. So I think it's about taking the same content and manipulating it for different platforms. But absolutely, there are stories that are worthy of it. Having said that, having done documentaries now for 10 years, and I've produced 5 years, and I've produced everything from Syria to horrendous stuff, I'll show you some of the stuff. I thoroughly now believe, having done long stuff, you can tell any story in 10 minutes. I think that's a 10-minute length is a perfect length for storytelling.
So you don't feel like me as a person scrolling my Twitter timeline and watching 10-minute videos, I feel like sometimes I come away thinking I know things.
Yeah.
Or like I have an awareness, but really I've just watched a series of 8.
It's too superficial.
And so, like, do you think the platforms themselves are making our depth of understanding issues more shallow, if that makes sense?
I suppose you could say you are getting bite-sized chunks, but at the same time, again, if you're looking at Twitter, you mentioned, in your 30-second videos, those 30-second videos would be perfect to then push somebody towards a Medium article, which is then far more extensive. So it's about how you use them. But for Twitter, we almost exclusively use videos as teasers. They're never the story. They're always lending into something. So I don't think Twitter in itself is a platform for a full narrative. We use it far more for breaking news and for teasing people towards greater content. But you are right. If you're talking about a superficial knowledge of what's happening around the world, perhaps you're right, but at the same time we probably have a greater superficial knowledge than ever before. So we know less, but we know lots of less, which I don't know if is a good or bad thing. I'm going to show you guys, just to give you an idea of the kind of production you can do with a cell phone. When we wanted to hire 12 youngsters to shoot on cell phones, we put out a promo, but we thought it wouldn't be fair to tell them to do it on a cell phone if we weren't ourselves doing the advert on a cell phone. So we produced this using just an iPhone 5.
Hey you. Yeah, you. Stalking your ex on Facebook? Can you get social media trending like #BeaverWiener? If so, we want you to join ENCA Bootcamp. Crazy things are happening in the media industry, and we need 12 young people to drive our mojo. No, that's mobile journalism. Are you a recent graduate who can shoot and edit videos? Or maybe you code? Even animate? Or you're into web design? If you love telling a great South African story, then we've got an assignment for you. Grab our attention using any mobile platform or elsewhere online. Pass and you'll join this newsroom for a year. Paid. For more details, check out enca.com/bootcamp.
So that was produced for the cell phone, but the end message, I suppose, for you guys working with civil society is that we really do have democratization of storytelling now. We don't, the newsrooms don't have, there's no excuse anymore where people say, oh, the media doesn't cover us, blah, blah, blah. If your story is compelling, you have the tools and you have the social media platforms to get the exposure, and people will share it, and there's no man in a big tower saying, no, we're not going to tell this story. Because we often hear that, right? We often hear the case of, I mean, when the Fees Must Fall protests were happening, we got a lot of students saying to us, oh, you're only showing one side of the story. Do you remember there was that image of the white guy driving, and that was the image that was plastered on everybody's front pages? The students had every capability to own that narrative based on using their cell phones to tell stories. You disagree? Yeah, we didn't find that they took advantage of that to the extent that they could have.
So I do disagree, because I think that ignores the fact that different people have different levels of access to data, cell phones, a whole number of things. So as much as, yes, in theory there is the democratization, that just glances over the issue of power and resources.
So with that Fees Must Fall protest, there was online crowdsourcing momentums to give people free data. You go onto a website and you get 30 rands of free data for exactly that reason. You don't have the access that we'll give it to you. And I don't think the tool is not access. I would argue that almost every university student has a smartphone. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the figures speak for themselves. Am I wrong?
Yes. Don't they have access to Wi-Fi? They got a lot of this.
And some don't have smartphones.
They don't have smartphones.
They don't want smartphones.
They don't want smartphones.
If I have a laptop, I don't need a smartphone.
That's a choice on them. But when you got smartphones are now going for about 300, 350 rand. That is almost within reach of every South African.
No, but also, I mean, the audiences that people are reaching are completely different. On social media, you're reaching your peers, not necessarily reaching the old white man sitting in his Santa house.
Do you need to reach him anymore though? Would it not make it onto his?
I think you do need to reach as many people as from different backgrounds as possible in order to change mindsets.
Yeah.
And I think it's the newspapers and it's Sibler too that's reaching that old white man in Santa house, and that's who the students are not reaching.
So on the old white man in Santon House, let me just see if I've got it here. New Year's.
Search for old white man.
No. You guys are obviously you were following the Penny Sparrow whole debate, not debate. Yeah, I don't know what to call it. Or it might be easier. Do you guys have Wi-Fi in here? I imagine you do.
Yeah. Happy cat.
Happy cat is a password.
Cat's a cat.
For example, it's all right.
Yeah.
Like with that BDS case, I was shocked. So a lot of people thought that it was set up, that I was there because I'm brown and Muslim, and that we must have had a setup. It was a complete coincidence. I was in a singlet and skinny little pink pants, and that dude was getting arrested, and I just happened to be there. But I was shocked that he didn't film it. Why didn't the BDS? I would have assumed the BDS went there knowing that there was a chance that they were going to have this altercation. They'd had an altercation in the past. It is a perfect example for me where they could have monopolized. Imagine if the footage wasn't there. I can tell you now that mainstream media wouldn't have gone with the story. And they weren't prepared for that. For me, that would have been an instinctive thing for them to do. Happy cat like that. We haven't got a signal to show you what I wanted to show online, but let me show you a couple apps for people that are thinking about getting into storytelling. Of course, you need an editing app. That's the most important part. If you're going to record footage, they're so simple. I'll just start a new one for you. On Android, the best one to get is probably Splice, S-P-L-I-C-E. You start a project, and it's as simple as Splice, S-P-L-I-C-E. Bringing in your footage, so just say, here's some stuff I shot this week, we're in Soweto. So first you lay down a voice. And you guys should be able to hear the voice.
Is that an Android? Or this is the Android app?
Lay it down like that. This is not an Android, but they're very...
We've told you about the race and told you about booking a bike, but something around Soweto is all about empowering the creative industries.
So television and creating video is very, very literal. It's writing to visuals. So we've told you about the race. So you quite simply look for a shot that speaks to a race. Let's find this person cycling. And you lay it on top. And then you've got what we call overlay. It's all about empowering the creative industries. So then we look for something that speaks to creative industries.
What's the name?
This is iMovie, but you get lots and lots of different variants. If you guys drop me tweets, I can give you a list of really cool apps. Creative industries, maybe this shot speaks to that, so you just trim the edges. S-P-L-I-C-E. And then you've got your second layer. And very quickly you start to compile a story, right? Now, perhaps you want to take your camera on your phone and make it a little bit more professional. You can get an app called Filmic Pro, which is a very, very, very powerful app. Any of you guys shoot on DSLRs? So a DSLR is the sort of the standard camera that most people are using to film at the moment. This will give you the same range of control. If I'm looking at, how cool is this? So this, you get on Android and on iOS. We're all 5 again. So this is your exposure. You can pick it up high, low, and it controls basically the aperture, the amount of light that's hitting the sensor on your phone. So, because if you don't do that, and I'm recording, and it's suddenly bouncing around, right, it's changing. So just say I'm happy with that color. I lock it down, make it red. Then I pick, who do I want to focus on? I want to focus right at the back. Yeah, there you go. Lock it down. Everybody else will be out of focus. If I want to get even trippier, I can hold that down and I can shift the focus.
What is the app called?
This is called Filmic Pro. It was the most popular app in the world for the last 2 years.
What is it?
Filmic, Filmic Pro. Filmic. The other really interesting thing that we're seeing in the world of storytelling, as I told you, people don't like to download, they don't like to read, they like to talk, they like to converse. So if you look at, for example, Quartz' new app, have any of you guys seen this app? It's unbelievable.
What is it?
Quartz. You're essentially having a conversation. The data's too low in here to get an ongoing conversation, but you're having a conversation with a news bot. It's not a real person, but it's talking to me. It's saying, hey, Trump just said this. And I'll say, oh yeah, tell me more about that. Or no, I'm not really that interested. And then it'll give me more information. It gives you the impression that you're talking to a human being. Here we go. Oh, so good afternoon. So this is in real time. Lego Bricks Empire keeps on growing. It just reported a big jump in profits. If I want to know more, I'll say, okay, everything is awesome. And they'll give me more. Tell me more about Lego. How cool is that? I mean, and the really interesting thing in terms of software in this is that you never will, and there's your ad, right? So it knows the kind of stories that I like. It knows maybe I clicked on a car page a while ago, so it gives me a car ad. It probably, in this instance, I sold my car today. So it knows via my cookies that I've been to Gumtree and I put my ad up car for sale. So I'm probably looking for a new car. I'm in my 20s, a Mini Cooper is perfect. It's very clever. That's content marketing. That's pushing stuff in my direction. This is Quartz, Quartz. But a very, very clever way. So I was going back to software. You would never have to update this app because all of the stuff that's going on is happening in the backdrop. They will change the way they send the text to you. They will change the type of videos they send to you. The fundamentals of this app is pretty much the same. Maybe in the future I'll have the capacity to actually type, and that would be a little bit cooler. Maybe I don't even want to type. But I find that genius. Ugh. I'll put that on to do not
I
just.
want to encounter a different point of view because it's going to use stories catered to what you. Like
So
what we see trend.
absolutely, and that's perhaps the greatest risk, as I'm sure you're aware, with social media and the news. Depending on the friends you surround yourself by, and the more you click on certain types of stories, Facebook works you out, and you end up surrounding yourself by one type of opinion, often by virtue of your friends. You limit your thoughts. So in that respect, you're right. You totally will be funneled into what you think you enjoy or what you think you represent. Other cool apps that I can share with you. You're often, how many of you guys, if you have a tablet, I mean, I don't have a tablet, but it's infinitely easier to edit on a tablet than it is a phone. Phone's just a small screen. If you get an app like this, it's called Photo Sync. It means you can transfer your photos between your phone and your tablet without using your data. It happens by mixing your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth together to create a synergy. That you'll find immensely useful if you're going to get into this sort of business. I wish we could get, is there no way we can get the Wi-Fi app? I want to show you guys, have you guys heard of a 360 video? 360-degree virtual reality.
Can you not show me that?
It has to go through Facebook. Let's see if we can, but it takes an awful, 360 is what is my key interest at the moment. It is the most engaging form of storytelling we've ever had. It essentially means we did the Fees Must Fall protest like this, where, no, not Fees Must Fall, Zuma Must Fall. Did you watch it? You watched the 360? So what was it? I mean, what did you experience?
It was nice because let's see like every point of view that we were walking, we were marching.
Exactly.
Like that. All of that.
That protest only had 1,000 people there, but we had like 40 or 50,000 people watch, and we filmed it with 16 GoPros. GoPros are very small, very resilient cameras, and we put them in a 3D printed sphere, so it's shooting in all directions, from the sky to the ground, all over. And then we stitched them together so that when you're watching the video, you're holding your phone and you look up and the footage looks up. You look down, the footage looks down. Again, when you get home, if you've got better signal, I can send you guys links, but it's the most immersive form of storytelling we've ever experienced. If people maintain, again, that we don't show all sides of a story at a protest or whether it's on the Gaza Strip, whatever it may be, with 360, you're obviously in control of where you put it and when you put it, but in terms of the angles and being part of that story, the user's never been more part of it. They're thoroughly immersed in the ground. We were at the United Nations General Assembly recently. If any of you guys are interested in charities, the UNICEF had 360. So you use your phone and you look around for an Ebola clinic and for the Syrian refugee camps, two environments that most people would never find themselves in. They found that people were 4 times more likely to donate money when they experienced this moving advert, for lack of a better word, compared to a conventional television ad. So it's a really powerful way of activating people to feel like they're on the ground. And then you can use all sorts of clever things, because remember, when you're in a 360 environment, the director, myself, has no control over what you look at, but we do have control over sound. So we have to use sounds to trigger you to look in this direction. Hopefully in the future we'll get to smell, and that would be even more interesting, I suppose. Any questions at this stage? I got about 10 minutes. I'm going to put that one back in. So, just to give you an idea of how easy it is to tell stories, I started out in the newspapers. I was working in an independent group with The Star and a few other titles. Print writer, and I strapped a camera to my head when we went to the Congo. I was with my wife actually. We were at the Joburg Fashion Week here in Hyde Park, watching women with long legs prancing around the catwalk. And that was at midnight, and then I got a call saying that there was an ammunition depot that had exploded in Brazzaville, Congo. And we got onto a military plane, one of these Hercules planes, with a couple of dogs, because the dogs were going to be the search and rescue dogs. And within 6 hours, I was on the ground in Brazzaville, and I had no experience shooting video, ever. And it's really, really not that difficult to create compelling stories. And here's one of the pieces we created in the Congo. So they keep weapons in civil populations in case there's an uprising, and this place happened to catch a light. Yeah. So for 3 days this fire raged on, and it was like the biggest fireworks display you've ever seen. It was just non-stop artillery being blasted in all directions.
Nothing's changed. The situation is far worse than before. Through corpses in every direction. It's just flattened.
That dog ended up cutting itself on some metal. We had to send it home because it wasn't functional anymore.
We're coming up amputated. She doesn't have food since yesterday, and now we're at 3 o'clock. She hasn't eaten a thing all day. This is Combo Camp. It's the most densely populated of all the camps. There's literally people sleeping everywhere.
My point there wasn't to bring your lunch back up. It was that you can produce stories very, very easily. You don't need a sophisticated camera. That was a really, 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 really cheap shoot. Just a clever edit. You don't even need to overdo it with voice. The most amateurish mistake we find with video is people having to describe every single bit of their footage. Find a good track, find powerful visuals, and let that piece breathe. And it speaks far louder. I suppose, yeah.
Sorry, with that video, was that shot on your phone, or did you have like a mixture?
That was a mixture. I had a BlackBerry at that stage, a BlackBerry Curve. I had that little camera that you saw. We call it a Mukendruk, I think in South Afrikaans, a point and shoot. But no broadcast equipment. It was stuff that I normally used to take stills photos with. That sort of resolution you can achieve with any phone, except like a VGA camera. And the same thing goes for, I got the kind introduction where she mentioned I hitchhiked from Durban to Damascus to Syria. And there was no real rationale for it. It was me finishing university and trying to see the continent. And again, I created a little teaser just to show you guys that you don't need words to tell a story. This is a 3-month journey. So yeah, very minimalist in the style of edit. And then eventually, I didn't make it to Syria. I tried to get Durban to Damascus and I got stopped 150 k's short of the border, and I didn't understand why. This was 2011, and I would later realize why the Syrian regime was the most paranoid, I suppose. When this random guy rocks up with a beard saying, "Hey, I want to come check out the country without a visa." Okay. I eventually did make it to Syria, and we produced this docu. I didn't manage to find that video because it's online, but I encourage you to check it out. On one final point, you guys are right that to some degree the guy who takes the video in the university might not get the same level of sharing in his friendship group and those things. But I personally thoroughly believe a good story will fly, and for me, the most recent experience I've had of that was the most viewed Facebook video we've ever had at ENCA of all time. The day before New Year's Eve this year, the day before the penny sparrow nonsense started, I don't know what happened in my mind, but I just knew, from based on the perceptions of, I was in Durban, the perceptions of those around me, my personal family and friends, were so racist, for lack of a better word, that I went out and I filmed on New Year's Day. I went in the water and I swam, and it was a really innocent shoot. It was literally me at the beach with a camera, filming people having fun in the ocean. You know how it is, Durban's packed. They call it Finding Sipo. I got in touch with the ENCA and I said, "I've got this great story, guys. Like, it's just a beautiful day at the beach." And they said, "That's not a story." So I said, "Fuck it, sorry." And I went the whole speech without swearing. And I put it up on Facebook myself, and it went berserk. It got 80,000 views in the first couple of days. And for me, that, in its most simplest form, was the way to fight the narrative of the penny sparrows of the world, the ones that were calling the people on the beaches monkeys. I didn't say a word in that piece. I went there and I just showed people having a good time. So I do believe a good story, that was just me. You're right, I'm a reporter and perhaps I've got a friendship group.
Your network is large.
It is, but nonetheless, a good story will be shared. It will reach the right people, and you can engage the right people. The guy in the township, if he can engage me or somebody and get me to watch that video, and that's not difficult to do, it will spread. I share it, and then it's in my network. So I thoroughly believe that the barriers are breaking down. Perhaps they still exist, and there are data, and there's many reasons why, but they're far less than ever before. Cool. Thank you for having me.
What's the difference between what you're doing and blogging?
Blogging is a form of journalism. There is no difference. Blogging is the most personal form. I think Twitter is a form of a blog. It's a micro-blog. Instagram is a form of a blog. There is no difference. It's all journalism at the end. Your Facebook statuses are forms of journalism. You're journaling your life and people's lives.
We can continue.
Cool. Any other questions?
Were you ever arrested, like, with your shooting or anything? Any experiences?
The closest, I haven't been physically put in a cell, but when we were covering the Zimbabwean elections, the last ones, we got too close for comfort. I was on Bike Bridge as Zimbabweans were going into Zimbabwe to vote and coming out, and we started filming on the bridge, and then there was a tussle between the Zimbabwean police and the South African police. South African police obviously say no, he's South African and you can't arrest him. But no, I've never been imprisoned.
Right, you mentioned Yusuf. Do you have any other examples of civil society organizations that are using their social media platforms and like really effectively with storytelling?
I think all of the good ones are. I think the example I gave you was specifically to 360-degree videos, where they'd collaborated with some filmmakers. But I think Greenpeace, I think all of them, it's becoming, especially now that Facebook and Twitter have got donate buttons, it's rapidly becoming a popular stream of revenue for NGOs. But now I can't cite you anyone that I particularly like. You were saying? Green. Oh, the Green Foundation in Uganda and Kenya are trying to get mobile banking. The vast majority of Ugandan women don't have access to mobile banking. So they're going quite big on the social cause.
Any more questions? On behalf of my fellows, I would like to say thank you for introducing us to the world of mobile journalism, and I learned a lot, and I hope everyone has learned a lot, and thank you for telling us about the apps. I think many of us will use it, probably. Some of us that are blogging might use it, and thank you so much for
Cool.
sharing.
Let me just